Okay, I literally have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm doing my Bible study for the week that I'm in this for this summer, and we're going through like the books of John. And I don't know, I guess I just thought that I would kind of share like what I'm reading and interpreting and thinking as I go through book number 11. And it's like talking about the death of Lazarus. And it starts off by saying, "Now a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair." So there was like already a story about this woman, and she was the one who like went up and like cleaned Jesus' feet. And I think that's interesting that there's like a connection there between the two. But anyways, it goes on. It says, "So the sisters sent word to Jesus, 'Lord, the one you love is sick.'" And I think that's just a really powerful sentence. Like, that's how he wants us to talk to him. Like, "Lord, the one you love is so scared right now. Lord, the one you love has no idea what to do about this. Lord, the one you love is short on finances." Like, I don't know. I just think that's awesome. When he heard this, Jesus said, "This sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it." So, like, he's not just, like, sick, like, to just, like, die and, like, have no purpose or meaning. It's literally only, like, it is literally for the sole purpose that Jesus can, like, work a miracle in him and show signs of his glory. It says that Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus, yet when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. Then he said to his disciples, "Let us go back to Judea." "But Rabbi," they said, "a short while ago the Jews tried to stone you, and yet you're going back there?" And I'm thinking like, yeah, like that sounds crazy. Like imagine you were in a city where a bunch of people are trying to shoot you, and you leave, and then you go back just a couple days later. It's like, there are people there that literally hate you. Why would you want to go back there? That sounds so scary and super illogical. That's no wonder the disciples are super confused. Like, they're like, dude, Jesus, they kind of hate you. Why would you do that?" I think there's such a sense of humor in the Bible and about what Jesus does, because it really most of the time does not make sense to us. Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours of daylight? A man who walks by day will not stumble, for he sees by his world's light. It is when he walks by night that he stumbles, for he has no light." After he had said this, he went on to tell them, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to wake him up." So, Jesus literally, he's pretty much saying, like, everybody has, like, a chance to, like, everyone has a chance, like, the whole 12 hours thing and walks by day, walks by night. To me, I interpret that as, like, he's pretty much saying, like, everybody has a chance to make the right decisions, follow Jesus, etc., etc. And everyone also has the chance to not do that and to walk in darkness. And there's plenty of opportunity for both. And also, yeah. Okay, so then in verse 12 it says, "His disciples replied, 'Lord, if he sleeps, he will get better.'" So they're thinking Jesus literally means like asleep, like catching some Z's. And I literally wrote "ha next to this because, like, if you think about it, like if we were back in those times, we would literally take everything that Jesus says literally as well, just like the disciples do. So we always think like, oh, they're being so silly, like that's not what Jesus means, but like that's exactly what I would think too. And they said, Jesus had been speaking of his death, but his disciples thought he meant natural sleep. I just think that's funny because it's like, I don't know. Jesus never says anything like in the black and white, like here's what's right, here's what's wrong. It's like he says it in a certain way so that we can make our own choice about it. Like he gives us free will to make our own decision about something and to like almost like interpret it like the way that he has it for us. Since everyone kind of like hears stuff differently. It says, "So then he told them plainly, 'Lazarus is dead, and for your sake I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe, but let us go to him.' He literally was like, Lazarus is asleep. I need to go like get him. And they're like, but if he's asleep, that might be good. And Jesus is like, okay, he's dead. That's what I meant. Let me just, fine. I'll just like not, I'll just be straight up. He's dead. That's what I meant. And he's saying like how it's like good for everyone that he wasn't there, that he just let him die, which doesn't sound good, like initially. But you keep reading, and he says, then Thomas, called Didymus, said to the rest of the disciples, let us all also go, that we may die with him. So then it goes on to verse 17 and says, on his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. That's a long time. That's not just like a couple hours. Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died, but I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. Oh my gosh, that's like crazy. Like what she just said is such profound faith. Like you can tell she like wants to kind of be mad at Jesus. Like if you had been here, like this wouldn't have happened. Like I needed your help. Like I asked you to help me, and you didn't. But then she goes on and literally says, and she says, I know that there's still a plan, and that you're still Jesus, and that you can still do all things. And so she still has like that hope in him. And then Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha answered, I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. So again, taking it literally, like, yeah, like I know. No one really ever dies. Like, of course, he's living for eternity now in heaven. And then Jesus said to her after that, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live, even though he dies. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? Yes, Lord, she told him. I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who was to come into the world. And after she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. The teacher is here, she said, and is asking for you. When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews had been with Mary in the house comforting her, they noticed how quickly she got up and went out. They followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Again, they're just very, very conflicted about how they did trust in him to save him, but yet they feel like Jesus still didn't come through in the way they thought it was going to happen. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Where have you laid him? He asked. It's literally like the grief and the sadness of his people that he loves is what moved him, because that's how much he cares about us. It's like when you have a child, or even like a friend, or even like a pet, like a dog, and they're sad or they're hurting. It makes you so sad. Like you want to do everything you can to help them. My mom always has been that type of mother. Like when something is like hurting me or bothering me, she wants to do just like anything that she can to make that pain go away. Come and see, Lord, they replied. Jesus wept. Verse 35 is literally 2 words. Jesus wept. Period. And I think that's something really powerful. I think there's like more in that than just reading that Jesus was crying or whatever. Like Jesus doesn't weep. Like crying and weeping are different things. Crying is like you shed a tear. Weeping is like you're hysterical. And I don't know, like I just don't feel like Jesus has ever really done that. I'm going to look that up and see if he weeps anywhere else in the Bible. Come and see, Lord, they replied. Jesus wept. Then the Jews said, see how he loved him. Like they're witnessing like how much Jesus cared for this man, which is like awesome. But some of them said, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man kept this man from dying? They're like, oh look, Jesus loved him so much, but he healed this other guy. Why didn't he heal this man that he actually knew and loved? Like they're confused. Obviously, I would be confused too. Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance, which is kind of interesting because that's also where like Jesus is buried later at the crucifixion. "Take away the stone," he said. "But Lord," said Martha, the sister of the dead man, "by this time there is a bad odor, for he has been there 4 days." So she's thinking, like, do you really want to do it this way? Can you just, like, perform the miracle from outside the tomb? Because it's really smelly, it's really dirty, it's really gross. Like, I don't really want to go in there. I don't really want to open it. And, I mean, that is pretty nasty. Then Jesus said, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" He's thinking, like, do you want it? Do you want him to live or not? Like, do you want this to happen or not? So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me." So he's literally just doing this thinking, like, he can raise anyone to life he wants to. He can kill anyone he wants to. Like, he is solely doing this to show an example of how powerful God is, and so that all these people can see, this is, I'm pretty sure, the first, like, and maybe only dead person he raises to life. Again, I will look that up. That would be interesting to know. Anyway, so it goes on, and let's see. In 43, it says, when Jesus said this, he called in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go." Mind blown. That's, like, crazy. It's just, like, it all goes back to how in verse 25 Jesus said, "I'm the resurrection and the life." Like, he doesn't perform resurrection and give life. He is resurrection. He is life. And even though, like, our bodies die, because we believe in him, we never actually have to die. Our souls will live with him forever. And that's just, like, I don't know. I think that this is, like, a way of him glorifying that part of God. I think that's really awesome. Sorry, I'm just, like, reading through all of this. But that's just kind of like my interpretation of reading this. When you slowly and read through a book of the Bible, or even just a few verses, you get a lot more out of it than just, like, reading it like a story, like just going through one sentence after the other. It helps to kind of, like, go back, and for me it helps to read out loud. That's usually how I do, is I read out loud. So that's why I figured, like, I would just go ahead and, like, record this. Because that's just kind of the way that when I read it out loud, I see more, like, details. Like, I think I have more, like, side thoughts, or, like, curiosities and things like that. And that's not all of Book 11. The next part is the plot to kill Jesus. But, I don't know. I thought it was pretty good. You can read it for yourself. It's John chapter 11, the death of Lazarus. So,